Thank you, Ken. Thanks very much. Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and join us in this exciting moment for us in our cycle of our research project. So this is a celebration because it is the end of the cycle, but it's a celebration because actually it's the beginning of another exciting step. It's the beginning of being able to implement the findings of the research, which is very important. Otherwise, why conduct the research in the first place? So I'm going to start, and I really would love for everyone to think about research not as theory or finding out about, fluffy bits around the edges, but the actual value of the research in changing what we do. That's the important message. So the project is actually a HEPPP-funded project, and it is specifically about what we do, so our business at CDU. So not only does it have findings that are relevant about CDU, but it also has a way of implementing those findings to help us keep moving in a positive direction and from strength to strength. So it's very much a strength-based approach to what we do at CDU and how we build on that foundation.
Sorry.
So it's our story. It's our CDU story. So what we did was we looked at how can we understand First Nations student engagement here at CDU and the messages that students are providing about that engagement, and how can we, excuse me, understand successful practices for engaging students here at CDU, and what can we do with that message? Okay, I'm going to go back. So I would obviously like to stop and just add my acknowledgement to what Kim said earlier and give my respect to Larrakia people, but also all First Nations people either present in the room or online with us today. So this is the team, and it's really important to acknowledge that each of us brought a different strength to the project, which is really why you, as a leader, have a responsibility to begin with to select the right people to work with on a project, because you want to obviously make the most of everyone's expertise in the space. So these are my colleagues who I've worked with. So Dr. Kate Golebiowska is Alicia Boyle and Associate Professor Guzyal Hill. So if you know anything about us, you know that actually in a combined effort, we're very pedantic and organised, which I think helped a lot over the 3 years that we spent conducting this research. So our presentation today is going to be an acknowledgement not only of the funding through the HEPPP program, but also of the expertise and support from our advisory group. So I can see Michael in the room with us today. Thank you very much. We also have Dr. Linda Ford on that advisory team, and also Dr. Anne Lau, who I can't see, but I can see Dr. Michaela Spencer, who's also with us today. Those are the people who helped contribute their knowledge and expertise in the Indigenous education research space that have followed along with us in our journey over the past 3 years to validate but also enforce the ethical practice in the way that we conducted our research. So you're going to find out about the aims of the research, how we collected the data, what we learned, and then the outputs as they're presented as a lecturer guidebook, a student guidebook, and then finally we will launch and you will all have a copy of the document. Okay, so as I said, our funding was through HEPPP funding, and the oversight was through not only the Indigenous membership within our project group or team, but also the advice from our advisory group. And always we have the support of Ruth in everything that we do within our faculty, which is fantastic. And as much as we can, we love to engage, of course, with the First Nations leadership and engagement area in the university. So we appreciate Ruben's support in our projects. So throughout the project, we had the opportunity to have many conversations, introductions, and connections with people that we don't normally work with at CDU. You know, it's really strange for us to feel that we're a part of something together. We're a part of CDU. But we work very much in a siloed kind of way. So there are a lot of times where we've heard someone's name before, maybe seen a photo of them perhaps. We've never actually spoken to them. We may not know what they do. We don't know about their expertise. But this project allowed us to increase our networks and our communication and our knowledge of what happens at CDU. Not only do we appreciate that, but we also appreciate the ongoing support of our Northern Institute research team here. And you won't realise how that support really contributes to the smooth operation of a project, unless you come work in an institute and you find out, and then you want to steal them, but you can't, okay? You cannot. And, you know, we also have input from, of course, uni stats. So within our network here at CDU, we would like to acknowledge the contributions of everyone who supported the work in this project, including the library, okay? Because we also not only had conversations with library staff, we also had some guidance about what's the best way to then record or store or promote the resource. So with advice about a DOI. And the aims of the project, so provide evidence of First Nations undergraduate student experiences that contribute to their ability to undertake and complete, so that's the important bit, the completion, studies at CDU. We needed to be able to provide evidence to support ways to increase lecturer cultural responsiveness and support improved First Nations student experiences at CDU. So we have a slide that we haven't included, but I think we need to mention it because it talked about the reasons why students discontinued their study. And apart from their own health and wellbeing, family responsibilities, about fourth down the list is actually not having very good experiences at CDU. So as a result of our findings and our research and coming to that realisation within the data, that helped us to decide which direction to move in and the fact that we needed to create this resource for everyone. So I just wanted to add that so you understand how we got to this point. And we want to produce a good practice guide. So what we did was not collect stories of disengagement or unfortunate circumstance. What we wanted to focus on was what are we doing well and what are the positive stories, and especially what are they framed within the student voice. So students reporting about this, about their experience, about who did a fantastic job to help them through to completion at CDU. And when they nominated either faculties or staff members, we got to then engage with those people who were nominated by students. So it's very much a strength-based, positive approach to thinking about student engagement here at CDU. And then our guidebook is accompanied by a student pocket guide as well to help orient students to success here at CDU. So it's for First Nations students especially. We're hoping to have those printed and ready for orientation 2025, the start of 2025. And I'll now hand you over to Kate. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. So Tracy has already given us a bit of a flavor of how we collected data from our participants. We spread the data collection throughout 2022 and 2023, whereas 2024 has so far been quarantined for data analysis and writing. So we collected data in Darwin and Sydney, and we engaged with First Nations undergraduate students. So the focus group is undergrads, their lecturers, and professional staff. So specifically what we did is we started off with a student survey. Then we conducted interviews with lecturers and professional staff. And we also have two focus groups, one here on the Tasmania campus and another one in Sydney. We are also working throughout the project with CDU stats. The communication has been great, and we have requested and obtained the identified statistics about First Nations undergraduate students, specifically about their enrollment, retention, and completion. And you will see just a snapshot of that data in a minute. So, what we learned. We will take you through some of the key findings, and some of this information is presented partially in the guidebook, but it will also be presented in an academic paper that we will soon start writing. So this graph is based on the CDU stats, the de-identified statistics that we obtained on the First Nations undergraduate students at CDU between 2021 and 2022. CDU stats lists 21 disciplines, but not all disciplines have enrollments at the same level. So what you can see here are the top 10 disciplines where the highest numbers of students are present in these 2 years. And the blue bar here represents the retention and completions, and the yellow color is the non-retention or loss. And so what you can see here is that nursing and health science are the two disciplines that have the best retention and completion at 73%. And then what is close is environmental science, and all other disciplines are below 70%. So overall, it's about 70% retention and completions and about 30% loss. So, and you will see this particular slide, this particular graph, sorry, in the student guide. Now, I think I am now handing over to Alicia, who will take you through the student survey results.
Well, I'd like to welcome everybody as well, and just reiterate what Tracy said about how wonderful it's been working with the team and everybody else in the project over the last 3 years. This part seems a long time ago. It was a survey conducted using Qualtrics. It was designed to understand the experiences of First Nations undergraduate students here at CDU, to identify their needs and challenges, and then also use those findings to help support current and future First Nations students at CDU, as well as inform, obviously, good practice for lecturing and other staff at CDU. The invitation to participate was sent to 656 First Nations students we have at CDU in higher education. We should probably say that we don't, even though this was a HEPPP-funded project, so focused on higher education, we don't believe that these findings are, well, we do believe that these findings could be useful for, CDU TAFE as well. So, but it was sent to 656 First Nations undergrad students. It was sent out by our First Nations student support and engagement team, so we were sort of at one arm's length away from who that went to. And that was done in late June 2022, and then we sent 3 reminders emails out later in the year. We got 82 initial respondents to that. It's about a 12% response rate, but that was still a good number to work with. And we ended up working with between 72 and 82 responses to all questions. As you might expect, given the slide that Kate just saw, most of the students that responded to the survey were either in health or society and culture. So we've got about 63% of the respondents were in health, and the other 16% society and culture, which includes law, sport and rec, and the language program. So these are most of those coming out of our own faculty. And about 70% of those responding were in the first 3 years of their study. So there was 14 in 2022 that were in their first year, 18 in their second year, and 13 that were in their third year. Why students wanted to study? Overall, it was to be a role model to their family. So if we look at them going from top to bottom, so we've got the family thing is important. The flexibility of the course is important. In fact, it was online. Then there was a whole group of responses about jobs, or it's important for a job. And then the other motivations were sort of more related to financial motivations up the top. So the flexibility is important, and it certainly probably goes along with the need to support family and to work. And in fact, they have many other responsibilities. We did ask them about what else they were doing. 25% of them said their major responsibility, other responsibility, was work. 15% looking after extended family members, and another 12%, although they could answer multiple, they could provide multiple responses, was to look after children over 5. So not as many students were having little children. They were mainly older children they were still caring for, or older family members. So work and family, again, were their other major responsibilities. We asked them about what services best supported them in their studies at CDU, and overwhelmingly they came out of the First Nations Student Support and Engagement Office, and also the library. So they were the things that most students mentioned. They were also asked about the sort of support they got out of CDU or away from CDU, and 30% of them said they felt very supported in their workplace to study, and another 30% of them also said that their families were very supportive of them studying, which is great. And there were a few other friends and scholarship coordinating organisations were also mentioned. So our second stage, as Kate indicated, was to collect data from interviews and focus groups. And as Tracy mentioned, each stage of the research was informed by the student voice. So that was really important, and that we were very keen to find out what worked and what the positive things were about being at CDU rather than what didn't work. So it was that strength-based approach right from start to finish. So in the survey, students were asked to nominate staff members, whether they be lecturing or professional staff, that they thought had really helped them succeed in their studies at CDU. So 46 individual staff members were identified, and students were also given the opportunity to say, well, what did those staff members do well? So some of them did mention things specifically and some didn't, because we were never going to go and follow up with its individual students for interviews. That was not part of our ethics clearance. So if they said anything in particular there, we could note that down. So with the professional staff, in some cases they mentioned individual names, but in some cases they mentioned like the library team or the First Nations student support team. So there was a bit of both there. As Kate mentioned, we had one focus group in Casuarina, and Sydney was chosen because a large number of the staff that students had identified came out of the Sydney campus, from the health, particularly from health. And the Sydney staff were very excited to participate because they feel a long way from CDU in Darwin. So that was a great opportunity, and our colleague Guzyal went to Sydney and did that focus group with the staff down there. So I'll hand over to Kate for what we found from the focus groups.
Yes, so with the two focus groups, there was a number of sort of similar messages. And so this slide summarizes what we found. Looking back to what Alicia just said about the importance of secondary support services, this was something that came through in both focus groups. And in particular, it was noted that the wraparound service, which means that there's an ongoing communication between the lecturer, the unit coordinator, the First Nations student support, and even the First Nations tutorial support. All of this really helps the students feel that they're looked after and it assists retention. It was also observed, I think, particularly in Sydney, that pastoral care for First Nations undergrads should be proactive. So students should learn as soon as they enroll what services they have access to, rather than not sharing this information with them, and students can only find out when they are in distress. So it's much better to inform them at the beginning. It is also important who First Nations undergrad students meet and can speak with when they are studying at CDU. And so academic leads within faculties who are First Nations Australians are relatable, because this way students can see others like them, they can see themselves in academic environment that they're in. And similarly, if a First Nations undergraduate student can work with a First Nations past tutor, for example, this also helps, because there is another person who has been through the process and they can assist. Personal and caring interactions with individual students and ongoing assessments of their circumstances. So, for example, responding promptly, responding in a way that's personalized, so addressing a specific question that a student brings up. And those ongoing assessments of their circumstances also assist their retention at CDU. And this personal approach is particularly critical for external students, because they can't come on campus and have a conversation with someone and walk away knowing. If I may add something that is not an observation from our focus groups research, but it came through the analysis of the statistical data. Students who are studying in mixed mode, so they can do some of their studies online and they can come to campus in person, have the highest rate of retention and completion, over 80%. Whereas students who are studying only externally have a 59%, and those who are studying on campus, 69%. So the mixed mode, and I think it also came through the survey results as well, the mixed mode is the best way that works for them. So together with the support services and the personal and caring interactions, we can support students through retention. As someone said in one of the focus groups, this could help soften the tense, and we really like that expression, to soften all the edges. And finally, cultural competency in teaching was another topic that came up in our focus group discussions. We had that students like coming back to classes where they are welcome and encouraged to use their lived experiences in their assessment in the academic context. And it was suggested that more recognition of their experiences would be wonderful. It should not be seen as something that is not aligned with the traditional approach that we want students to use references when they write their assessments. We should consider their examples and their lived experiences as something that is equally valuable. Another point that was made was that when we use relatable case studies, so a case study that either talks about a First Nations community or a First Nations person helps the students. However, we should not be stereotyping the communities and individuals when we're using these examples. So I will now hand over to Tracy. We get into the most exciting part of the presentation.
Thank you, Kate. So this is what our lecturer guidebook contains. So this is just the contents page. Those were the kinds of points that we felt that we needed to hit. in the way that we communicated our findings, but also address particular issues or topics that arose within the research. So that's a look at the lecturer guide, but I wanted to just help you again think about why we've created the lecturer guide the way we have. So the reason that it is created in a way that it's going to stand on your desk is because we're hoping that you're going to use it. We would love everyone across CDU to have a copy, because even if you're not a lecturer, the information that's contained in it might be relevant to you in your research or your interests, but also I think engaging with students is everyone's business. And why not take a minute to have a read and make sure that you're well informed so that you could do the best job that you possibly could. So the reason that it's created in this way is so that it can stand on your desk right up front and you can make reference to it quite often. So when you flip the pages, you get a picture and you can also turn it around and have a look back at the other side. So it's designed for purpose, for use. The student guidebook, on the other hand, is about half that size. It's meant to be something that's assisting students, not another daunting piece of literature that they have to read, but an assisting resource, so a student pocket guide that they can quickly have, given to them in their orientation pack and be able to get it out and refer to it, because obviously it's going to have all of this really important information for students to feel that they can be successful in their journey with us at CDU. And we are very happy to be obviously launching the book today. There's just a couple of little details I want to mention. So the potential reach of the guidebook, according to our March 2024 statistics, is that we can potentially support 732 CDU teaching staff in higher ed, 200 CDU teaching staff in TAFE, 212 Menzies teaching staff, so overall 932 CDU staff and 212 Menzies staff. And we're anticipating that those benefits will also extend beyond CDU, as I've already provided a lecture in a learning and teaching series to colleagues far away in the University of New England. And I've made reference to our guidebook and they would like a copy of it. So we're having a broader reach than was initially thought, but we're very happy about that. So please take a minute to have a look at your book. Please also, can you congratulate the team on their work in producing this book? And if you would like to contact us further, those are our details, but also please access our First Nations Success website that has the project on there, more information about it. And in fact, 3 other First Nations projects that have either been completed or are still happening. Yeah, so, and
Actually, the guidebook is also available online.
yes. So apart from the printed copies that we have today, we'll have printed up to 250 copies to distribute throughout the university. But apart from that, we also have a PDF version that's available on a link, which is on the bottom here. So the lecturer guidebook link is actually there. And that's been distributed as well in a media release today about the text. Is that catering? Yeah. Yes, everyone please enjoy some lunch and talk and thank you so much. We can have some questions. I hope no one's got a question because I've just told you so much information, you haven't got any. Maybe once you have a look through the text, you might have some questions. Maybe while we mingle?
Yeah.
Yes? Did anyone want to ask a question? No? Brilliant. Oh, lovely.
Yes, so the project included the undergrad students. Did you have any postgrad students as well?
That wasn't our initial focus. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When is the student one available?
We're hoping to complete it by the end of this year. And as soon as we've done that, of course, we already have our plans in place with Uniprint to go ahead and print those. We're just finalising the final edits of that, and we're hoping to distribute that at the start of next year, so 2025, for our first orientation group coming through.
Okay, our first orientation will be in the 3rd of February.
Okay, well, it will be printed